Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, diving into the top 48 shoot-'em-up games of all time. We're not just listing games, we're blasting through a legacy of pure, unadulterated arcade thrill. Shoot-'em-ups, or shmups for short, are all about dodging a storm of bullets while dishing out your own, turning the screen into a whirlwind of chaos and precision. These games have been getting gamers' hearts racing for decades, from pixel-packed classics to the sleek, modern mayhem. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just curious, this list is your ultimate guide to the titles that made us grip our controllers tighter and celebrate every hard-earned victory. So, let's hit the play button and jump into the action-packed world where every shot counts and every game is a wild ride. Thunder Force 4. Thunder Force 4, a horizontal shooter from Technosoft, takes players on a high-speed journey through the galactic standard year of 980. You're the pilot of the Styx fighter, and it's up to you to take down the Yorn Empire and its buddies. The gameplay is a thrilling ride, featuring the Fire Helio 04 Rhynex starfighter, equipped with an arsenal of weapons, from twin shots to the powerful Thunder Sword. Each weapon offers a unique way to obliterate enemies. The game's stages can be tackled in any order, each ending in a boss battle that will really test your skills. The game's blend of intense action, strategic weapon choices and dynamic level design makes for an exhilarating experience. The controls are so smooth that you'll feel like you're really part of the action. Sure, it's tough, but nailing those tricky levels feels so good. Thunder Force 4 isn't just another shoot-'em-up, it's an adventure that draws you in, making each victory more satisfying than the last. Radiant Silvergun, 1998. Radiant Silvergun, developed by Treasure in 1998, is a vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up that's all about strategy and firepower. You've got your Vulcan, homing and spread shots, and you can mix these up to create even more powerful attacks like the homing plasma or lock-on spread. The story is set after the Third Bacterian War, and you're part of a squad sent into the Black Nebula to take on some bad guys. It's not just the innovative weapon system that lets you level up your arsenal, but also the intricate scoring system based on enemy colors that adds depth to every playthrough. The game's meticulously crafted levels and boss fights are a visual and strategic delight. It's tough, sure, but in a way that makes every victory feel earned. RType, 1987. RType is an epic blast from the past where you're zipping through space in your R9A Arrowhead, going head-to-head with the nasty Bido aliens. The year is 2163, and things are pretty dire, but your ship is loaded with cool power-ups like homing missiles and laser crystals, so you've got a fighting chance. The game's all about dodging, shooting, and strategizing your way through some seriously intense levels, each with its own big bad boss waiting to take you down. RType isn't an ordinary space shooter game. It's got this old-school vibe, but with challenges that still feel fresh. Every level throws something new at you, keeping you on your toes and your fingers on the fire button. The trivia, like the TurboGrafx 16's box art misinterpretation, adds layers to its rich history. RType isn't just a game, it's a thrilling experience that's rightfully earned its place in the pantheon of classic arcade shooters. Super Galaxy Squadron EX Turbo. Super Galaxy Squadron EX Turbo takes you through space, where you're smack in the middle of a human versus alien showdown. Set in the future, it's all about this massive tiff with the SETI aliens that's got everyone on edge. You're one of the top dogs in the Super Galaxy Squadron, and it's up to you to bring home the win. The game is packed with a variety of modes like Arcade, Endless, and Boss Rush, each offering something unique. Plus you get to pick your own difficulty level, which is pretty sweet whether you're just starting out or you've got mad skills. The colors pop off the screen, and the tunes, they're the kind that get stuck in your head in the best way. It's not the kind of game that'll make you throw your controller in frustration, but it's got enough kick to keep you hooked. So if you're itching for some space action, this is one game you've got to check out. Axela. In Axela, you're thrown into a world where 2D space shooters were the rage, but this one's trying to shake things up. You're in your ship going through a mix of vertical and side-scrolling levels, each packed with enemies and obstacles. The game's plot isn't just about blasting through space, it's about pushing the SNES to its limits with its Mode 7 and parallax scaling effects, creating a pseudo 3D experience that was cutting edge for its time. You get to choose from a unique arsenal of weapons before each level, and if you hit, you don't just explode, you lose the weapon you're using, forcing you to adapt on the fly. Sure, it's got a few quirks like sometimes you'll swear a bullet didn't hit you, but the game says otherwise. But honestly, that's part part of its charm. The visuals are something else, with enemies popping in with these slick effects that still look cool. And the music, well, it's not what you'd expect. It's got these chill tracks that are a nice break from the usual high-speed tunes. It might not be the longest game out there, but Axela is the kind of game you'll revisit just for the sheer fun of it. It's a little slice of the 90s that still holds up today. Lords of Thunder. In this game, you're Landis, a warrior rocking one of 4 epic elemental armors. Each suit, whether it's spitting fire or hurling bolts of lightning, has its own vibe and way of trashing enemies. This game is all about magic and might. You get to pick your armor and dive into levels in any order, which means the game is pretty intense right from the start. Let's talk about what makes this game a real gem. The soundtrack is just killer. Imagine shredding through enemies with heavy guitar riffs blasting in the background. It's the kind of beat that gets your adrenaline pumping. And then there's the shop system, where you snag crystals from downed foes to gear up with health boosts or more firepower. It's also got this cool strategic twist that makes you think about your next move. Lords of Thunder is a unique mix of fantasy and action that's just as awesome now as it was back in the day. Ranger X. Ranger X is like jumping into a mech suit and heading straight into a sci-fi action movie. You're decked out with all sorts of cool weapons, and it's not just about blasting everything in sight. You've got to be smart, juggling your health, energy, and all the different ways you can take down the bad guys. The game throws you into some tight spots, especially those tricky underground levels, but that's where the real fun is. From a gamer's point of view, Ranger X really nails it with killer graphics, making every level pop with detail, and the soundtrack is the kind of tunes that get you pumped up and ready to take on an army. Sure, the controls might make you scratch your head at first, and the game doesn't exactly go easy on you, but that's all part of the charm. It's the sort of game you brag about beating. It might have been a bit overlooked when it first came out, but Ranger X is one of those hidden treasures that's totally worth diving into for anyone who loves a good, challenging action game. RType Final 2004. RType Final marks the end of an era for the legendary series, bringing a bittersweet closure to fans who have been blasting Bido enemies since 1987. It keeps their classic shoot-'em-up spirit alive, but spices things up as players have to navigate through various stages, each offering alternate paths and routes, adding a layer of strategy and replayability. While it may not be as frantic as other titles in the genre, it presents its own set of challenges with big bosses and smarter enemies. The graphics are seriously impressive, with everything from the explosions to the backdrops popping off the screen. But yeah, there's a bit of a slowdown when the action gets too hot, which can be a drag. The tunes are decent, though they don't quite hit those epic highs from back in the day. The real kicker is the crazy number of ships you can unlock and customize, making each playthrough feel a bit different. Sure, it's a bit of a grind to get them all, but it's worth it for the variety. All in all, RType Final is a fitting tribute to a classic series. Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2, 2008. Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2 is like the original version on steroids, throwing in a bunch of new modes and multiplayer action to keep things fresh. You're still zipping around that neon chaos, blasting geometric baddies, but now there's a twist with those green orbs you have to snag in order to jack up your score. It's not just about how quickly you can shoot, it's about how gutsy you are grabbing those multipliers amidst a sea of enemies. Each mode brings its own flavor to the table, with some really making you rethink your strategy, like pacifism, where you can't shoot at all. The game's 6 modes ensure variety. Even though some modes might feel like slight variations on the same theme, the overall package is a blast. Sure, it's a bummer there's no online multiplayer, but getting a few friends together for some couch play is a blast. The visuals are as eye-popping as ever, and the soundtrack really gets your blood pumping. It's the kind of game that's easy to jump into, but hard to put down, perfect for a quick fix or a long binge. Raptor, Call of Shadows, 1994. Raptor, Call of the Shadows is all about jumping into your fighter jet and blasting through waves of enemies. It's straight up action. You fly through levels, unleash a barrage of bullets, and try to outlast the onslaught. Each stage cranks up the intensity, pitting you against tougher foes and massive bosses. The game doesn't complicate things with hidden extras or side quests. It's just you, your arsenal, and a sky full of adversaries. You've got your main guns and some cool secondary weapons, each with its own twist, so you can mix things up a bit. It has vibrant visuals and solid soundtracks that throw you back to the 90s. Sure, it's not as fancy as today's games and the weapon selection could be better, but it's got that nostalgic vibe that's hard to beat. It's a short ride, but it's fun and intense while it lasts. If you're looking for a no-nonsense shoot-'em-up experience that takes you back to the basics, Raptor is your game. 1942, 1984. 1942 takes you back to the old days of gaming where you're just controlling a plane in the thick of World War II action. It's all about cruising through those 32 levels, blasting away with your machine gun and pulling off slick moves to avoid getting hit. The game keeps it simple. Shoot, evade, and grab the occasional power-up. It's kinda like a trip down memory lane where mastering the enemy's moves was the whole game. The gameplay is solid and has that retro charm, but the graphics and sound, they're pretty basic and don't really do much to amp up the excitement. The game's got its fun moments, especially if you're into classic arcade shooters, but don't expect the bells and whistles of modern games. For the nostalgia buffs, it's a cool dive into the past, but for those used to high-octane graphics and sound, 1942 might feel a bit too old school. Einhander, 1997. In Einhander, you're zipping around in the future, taking on Earth with some seriously cool space fighters straight from the moon. The game lets you pick from a bunch of different ships, each with its own vibe and difficulty. The action is intense. You're grabbing weapons right off your enemies and every move counts. Get hit once, and you're in trouble. But thankfully there are some save points to give you a breather. It's all about staying one step ahead of the chaos. The visuals are top-notch, and everything moves super smooth. The soundtrack's got this cool, understated vibe that fits perfectly with the space battles. But heads up, it's not a walk in the park. The game's pretty short and can be tough to get the hang of, especially if you're new to shooters. And while it's a blast to play, you might miss having a buddy to join in. UN Squadron, 1989. In UN Squadron, you're part of a mercenary group taking to the skies in a series of intense air battles. The game, based on the anime series Area 88, puts you in the role of one of 3 pilots, each with unique abilities and recovery times. The gameplay is a mix of strategy and action, with a vitality bar adding a layer of complexity to the traditional 2D shooter format. Even on the easy setting, this game doesn't mess around. It makes you think through every move. UN Squadron really brings it with graphics that make you feel like you're right there in the arcade. The levels are packed with detail, from stunning sunsets to enemy bases that look super legit. Missing out on a 2-player mode is a bit of a bummer, and having your gunfire cut out randomly can be a pain. But the real test comes later on when you've got to be super picky about your plane and weapons to beat those tough levels. All in all, UN Squadron is a solid choice if you're into shooters that make you think as much as they make you shoot. River Raid. River Raid, released in 1982, is a pioneering shoot-'em-up game where you're in a plane, flying down a winding river, blasting away enemies, and avoiding the terrain. The gameplay is straightforward yet engaging. You need to keep your fuel topped up, take out hostile forces, and steer clear of the banks and obstacles. It was pretty innovative with its vertical scrolling and strategic elements, like managing your speed to conserve fuel, which adds a layer of depth to your flight. The controls are tight, making it easy to get into but hard to master. The graphics are a standout for the Atari era, with vibrant colors and detailed designs for enemies in the environment. While it might not have a soundtrack, the gameplay is engaging enough that you won't miss it. What's really cool is that it's one of the first games to credit its developer, Carol Shaw, which is a big deal. If you're into gaming history or just enjoy a solid challenge, River Raid is a blast. It's all about making quick decisions, managing your resources, and keeping the adrenaline pumping. Truckton. Truckton is a vertically scrolling space adventure developed by Toaplan. Originally released in arcades in 1988, it was later ported to the Sega Genesis, offering an engaging experience. In the game, you control a spaceship, navigating through various levels filled with enemies and obstacles. The game stands out for its weapon system, where you can upgrade your ship's firepower and gain additional support ships. The Genesis version features a unique UI, displaying lives, bombs, power levels, and scores on a quarter of the screen, which is unusual but effective. The game's interesting, with a difficulty that ramps up quickly and requires memorization and skill to progress. The bosses and mini-bosses are particularly tough, and dying can set you back significantly. Visually, Truckton is somewhat plain compared to its contemporaries, with unimpressive backgrounds and a lack of flair. While Truckton might not be the top dog in the world of shoot-'em-ups, it's got its charm if you're up for a challenge. Just don't expect it to blow your mind with looks or tunes. Steel Empire. Steel Empire offers a unique blend of horizontal scrolling action and a steampunk aesthetic. Set in an alternate 19th century timeline, the game pits the Silverhead Republic against the tyrannical Steel Empire. Players navigate through various stages, from saving cities to a final showdown on the moon. The game stands out for its ability to shoot in both directions, and its choice of 2 vehicles, the fast but fragile Striker and the slower, more durable Zep-01. The game incorporates an experience system, allowing players to level up their ship for increased firepower, and includes health pickups and bombs for added strategy. The whole steampunk vibe is pretty awesome, and it gives the game a unique feel. The game has some slowdown issues, particularly during boss explosions, but these don't detract significantly from the overall experience. The boss fights are creative and hard, requiring quick thinking and maneuvering. Its unique setting and well-executed mechanics make it a title that's worth experiencing. Stoden. Stoden cranks up the shoot-'em-up genre with a roguelike twist and a killer heavy metal soundtrack. You kick off each run with just a basic blaster, but as you go through space, you'll snag new weapons and face off against a mix of familiar bosses and randomly generated levels. The game doesn't have a finite ending. Instead, it loops around, offering a seeded superplay mode for a more fixed challenge. The limited opportunities to pick up new weapons means you'll need to learn to play with what you get, and a lot of failure is part of the journey. The health system makes the game quite approachable, with a limited invincibility recovery period and full health restoration after each boss fight. This game has funky weapons and smooth controls. The whole vibe is super cool, with pixel art that pops off the screen. It's got a bit of humor too, with funny boss descriptions and cheeky comments when you bite the dust. Yeah, sure, it's tough, but in a way that makes you want to jump right back in and try again. Musha. Set in a futuristic world, players command a flight-enabled mobile suit, battling against robotic ninjas and Japanese castles on tank treads. The game's unique anime-style cutscenes add to its charm. Gameplay-wise, Musha is a vertical scroller with a standard power-up system for the primary weapon and 3 secondary weapon options: lightning-based lasers, fire-based explosives, and water-based shields. A distinctive feature is the drone system, which offers increased firepower and can be commanded to change attack strategies, providing a tactical edge in battles. Despite being one of the early Genesis titles, it showcases the console's capabilities with rapid background scrolling, large enemies, and a screen filled with action. The game's difficulty is notable. Even on easy settings, it presents a formidable challenge. The ability to respawn immediately after dying without being sent back adds to the intensity, especially during boss battles. Musha is definitely a must-play for shooter fans and a worthy addition to any classic game collection. Thunder Force 3. Thunder Force 3 throws you into the pilot seat of the Fire LEO-03 Styx, where you're zipping through space, taking on the Orn Empire. Players navigate through various planets, each with its unique challenges and enemies. The game allows players to select their starting planet, and the weapons are pretty slick too. You only lose what you're using if you get blasted, so there's a bit of strategy in what you pick and when. The introduction of speed settings further enhances the gameplay, allowing players to adjust their speed ship on the fly. It's got that old school vibe, but doesn't feel dated. The gameplay is straightforward, but keeps you on your toes, especially with the different planets and weapons. The graphics and sound are what you'd expect from a classic game, but they still do a great job of pulling you into the action. It's enough to keep you coming back, but not so tough that you'll want to throw your controller. All in all, it's a classic space shooter that's still fun to play. RType Delta. PS. RType Delta cranks up the classic shoot-'em-up formula with its 1998 PlayStation debut, introducing a sleek polygonal look and a choice of 3 distinct ships. Set in the year 2163, the game picks up right after the original RType's events, thrusting players into the thick of the Bido Seed incident. You're part of an elite team tasked with stopping the Bido's latest terrifying assault on Earth, with the added twist of choosing your ship, each with its unique capabilities and armaments. This game brought 3D graphics into the mix, making everything feel a bit more real and a lot more intense. And that Delta weapon? Total game changer. You've got to charge it up and time it right, but when you do, it's like setting off the most epic fireworks show, but with aliens as the main attraction. It's got this cool feature where you can tweak your speed on the fly, making you feel like a real hotshot pilot. It's a great example of how a classic game could evolve, offering a fresh, exhilarating experience that's as engaging now as it was when it first came out. Gradius 3. In this game, you're sitting in the cockpit of the iconic Vic Viper, diving headfirst into a battle against the Bacterian Empire's dark forces. This game's all about escaping through a storm of bullets while blasting enemies across 10 crazy levels. Notably, it includes a unique pseudo 3D level that's a first for the series, where you navigate the Vic Viper from a third-person perspective. The plot is a high-stakes space opera. The Bacterian god of destruction is threatening the universe, and after a devastating attack on Gradius, you're part of a last-ditch effort to save everything you know. Gradius 3 is no walk in the park. It's famously tough, so much so that arcades yanked it pretty quick. But hey, that's what makes nailing those levels feel so good. The game's got this neat feature where you can mix and match your weapons, which means you can play it your way. It's all about quick moves and even quicker thinking. With its intense battles and brain-teasing strategies, it's one of those games that keeps you coming back for more, trying to beat that one level that's got you stumped. Asterbreed Definitive Edition 2014. You're in control of a mech, navigating through intense battles with a unique camera system that shifts between horizontal, vertical, and over-the-shoulder views. This isn't your typical shooter. The game seamlessly transitions between perspectives, keeping the action fresh and engaging. You've got a range of attacks at your disposal, from standard shots to a homing attack and a devastating sword for close combat. The combat system is deep, allowing you to combine different attacks for maximum effect. The game's pacing is spot on, with each level ramping up the challenge and forcing you to master your arsenal. Asterbreed makes you feel like a true badass, with a combat system that's both versatile and satisfying. The graphics are gorgeous for an indie title, and the game runs smoothly. However, the game does have its quirks, like the Japanese voice acting paired with text that can be hard to follow during the heat of battle. Despite this, Asterbreed emerged as a surprise hit, showcasing that the shooter genre is alive and well, thriving on innovation and risk-taking. Jamestown Plus 2019. Jamestown Plus is this intense shooter set on Mars that's straight out of the 17th century. You're playing a criminal trying to make things right, and let me tell you, it's no walk in the park. The game's packed with bullets flying everywhere, and you've got a bunch of different ships, each with its own special moves and tricks. The higher you crank up the difficulty, the crazier it gets, especially with the final boss who's a real tough cookie. The game doesn't just throw enemies at you, it requires players to plan how to use the ship's vaunt system, a shield that also boosts your damage and score. but needs careful management. The pixel art is lovely, creating an engaging world that's a joy to fly through, even as it's trying to blow you up. The co-op mode adds another layer of fun, though it can get chaotic with too much happening on screen. The game's design choice to lock progress behind higher difficulties is a bit divisive, forcing players to really hone their skills. Despite this, Jamestown Plus is a blast to play. Devil Engine 2019. You're in control of a ship in this horizontal shoot-'em-up with a simple but effective arsenal. A main shot, a powerful bomb attack, and a burst technique that absorbs bullets and boosts your score. The game doesn't mess around with complexity. It's straightforward shooting with a twist. The burst mechanic adds a layer of strategy, as you decide when to play it safe and when to go all out. The game's difficulty is notoriously tough, pushing you to memorize patterns and perfect your timing. The graphics are all flashy and detailed, giving it a modern twist on the classic style. The tunes are absolutely banging, keeping the adrenaline high. But yeah, this game will test you, making you work for every bit of progress. You've got to earn your victories. No hand-holding here, requiring you to learn and adapt. If you're ready to put in the work, then Devil Engine is right up your alley. Crimson Clover World Ignition 2014. Crimson Clover World Ignition is a vertical bullet-packed game that throws players into a frenetic world of non-stop action. With 3 ships to choose from and an additional one to unlock, players can find their style amidst the chaos. The game offers 2 difficulty modes, Novice and Arcade, with sub-modes like Boost, Unlimited, and Time Attack, each providing a unique challenge. You're basically trying to weave through a storm of enemy fire while dishing out your own. Your ship might look big, but the part that really matters is pretty tiny, giving you just enough room to slip through tight spots. You've got this cool lock-on move and a brake gauge that lets you unleash some serious firepower or go into this over-the-top brake mode where you're just shredding everything in sight. The satisfaction of tearing through enemies and narrowly escaping a screen full of bullets is unmatched. It's chaotic, sure, but in the best way possible. The game's variety keeps it fresh, and the thrill of mastering its challenges is addictive. It's a masterpiece that's so much fun it's perfect for anyone looking to test the skills and reflexes. Raiden II. Raiden II is an intense arcade shooter where you're tearing through skies, blasting everything in sight, and snagging power-ups to boost your ship's firepower. The gameplay is super addictive. You're up against a bunch of enemies that aren't too tough to handle, but the bosses, they're a whole different story. You've got this neat trick with a grey box and give you an extra life or a medal, depending on your timing. The graphics have this cool retro vibe, with a sort of 3D effect when bombers go down, and the debris from destroyed enemies adds a nice touch. Sure, the graphics aren't top-notch, and the weapons designs could use a bit of sprucing up, but the satisfaction of progressing through each level and the thrill of getting further make up for it. You can tweak a bunch of settings to make the game feel just right for you, which is pretty cool. Plus, there's a multiplayer mode that adds an extra layer of fun. Gates of Thunder. Gates of Thunder is this rad side-scroller that really cranks up the volume with its CD-quality tunes. You're in charge of this ship, blasting through alien forces, juggling 3 alterable aspects: speed, direction of attack, and primary weapon type. The game offers a variety of tactical choices, allowing players to adapt their ship's speed, toggle the direction of their options to fire behind, and switch between different primary weapons like lasers, wave projectors, and explosives. There are 7 levels to get through, and if you're feeling bold, you can crank up the difficulty with Hard and Devil modes. Gates of Thunder has a rocking soundtrack that's heavy on the guitar and totally amps up the action. The gameplay keeps you engaged with all the options for customizing your ship, making it feel like you've got more control than in your average shooter. While the number of levels is pretty standard, the extra tough modes add some serious replay value. Chaos Field. Chaos Field is a vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up that tries to carve its own path in the genre. Set against an interdimensional backdrop where humanity faces a menacing threat, players are in charge of one of 3 ships through 5 intense phases. Each ship has a unique main weapon, an energy sword for close encounters, and special abilities that vary in effect. The game introduces an innovative mechanic where players can switch between 2 dimensions, the Order and Chaos Fields, each altering the game's dynamics and difficulty. In the Chaos Field, your weapons are more powerful, but so are your enemies, creating a high-risk, high-reward scenario. The dimension switching mechanic adds a layer of depth, but the game suffers from issues like imprecise collision detection and a focus on non-stop boss fights that can feel monotonous. Visually, the game is decent with some standout effects, but the audio is disappointingly muted. Despite these shortcomings, Chaos Field offers a unique experience. It's a game that might not have reached its full potential, but still offers enough to be worth a look for fans of the genre. Star Soldier, Vanishing Earth. Star Soldier, Vanishing Earth is a throwback to the classic overhead shooters of the past. Players choose from 3 ships, each with distinct weapons, and embark on a mission to thwart the Zeograd army across 7 stages plus 3 bonus ones. The game mixes traditional shield and weapon power-ups with a hit combo system for destroying multiple enemies. It offers 2 modes, a normal mode with a storyline and a time attack mode for score chasers. The game is described as brutally retro, with predictable enemy patterns and a lack of interaction that might feel dated to some players. This game seems to miss the mark in reviving the overhead shooting genre for a new generation. While the 3D look differentiates it from 16-bit shooters, the gameplay lacks the innovation found in titles like Axela or Raiden. The graphics, with polygonal backdrops and rotational effects, attempt to add a 3D feel but end up looking dated compared to other N64 titles. Overall, Star Soldier: Vanishing Earth might offer a brief diversion for fans longing for an old-style shooter, but it doesn't bring enough new or exciting to the table to stand out in the genre. Galaga. Galaga, the 1981 sequel to Galaxian, is a fixed shooter where you're up against swarms of alien forces. The gameplay's got a cool twist from the old Galaxian days, letting you pop off 2 shots at once and deal with enemies diving at you in all sorts of funky patterns. The plot is straightforward yet compelling. Fend off waves of alien attackers in a desperate bid to save Earth. The most iconic twist is the enemy's ability to capture your ship, which, if freed, doubles your firepower and turns the tide of the battle. Galaga really stands out for how it's managed to stay so popular over the years. The challenging stages where you're just unloading on enemy swarms without them shooting back, pure adrenaline. And the strategy you need to dodge and shoot while maybe getting your captured ship back, that's what keeps you coming back for more. This game is all about quick reflexes, smart moves, and that satisfying feeling when you clear a tough wave. Lightning Force. Lightning Force: Quest for the Dark Star, also known as Thunder Force 4, is a horizontal shoot-'em-up game that's a standout on the Sega Genesis. In this game, you're in charge of the Rhinex ship through 10 stages, starting with the freedom to choose from any of the first 4 stages. The gameplay involves navigating your ship, collecting weapons for increased firepower, and avoiding one-hit kills without a shield. The game's design allows for weapon swapping and speed control, adding layers of tactical gameplay. The visuals are impressive for a 1992 release, with each area bringing something new to the table. And the soundtrack is just killer, adding to the whole vibe. The game's difficulty is notably high. Even on easy settings, it'll make you work for every inch. But the Sega Ages version has this kids mode that eases up a bit, letting you keep your weapons longer and giving you a bit of a shield. They even threw in the stick ship from Thunder Force 3 for some extra fun. Overall, Lightning Force: Quest for the Dark Star is a highly praised shoot-'em-up and is a must-play for fans of the genre. Karuga, 2001. This game is a vertical shooter that's become a legend for its unique polarity switching mechanic. You're flying through a world where you can flip between black and white, absorbing bullets of the same color while blasting away foes. This isn't just about reflexes, it's about knowing when to switch up and let loose with your own firepower. The game's plot, while not its main focus, revolves around a lone pilot taking on an oppressive regime, adding a layer of depth to the frantic gameplay. The whole color switching thing isn't just for show, it makes every moment a brain teaser. The game has beautifully designed levels and enemies that make each stage a work of art. Sure, Karuga is tough, but every death teaches you something, and mastering a level feels like a real accomplishment. This is a game that's definitely worth your time. Space Invaders. Space Invaders is a classic arcade game from '78 where you're the last line of defense against a bunch of pixelated aliens. It's all about moving your little tank left and right, blasting away at rows of invaders trying to land on Earth. The gameplay is super simple but gets you hooked fast. As you knock out those blocky baddies, they start speeding up, making each level a race against time and a real test of your reflexes. Now, let me tell you, Space Invaders isn't just another old school game. It's a legend. It kicks off the whole shooting game craze and has been popping up everywhere from movies to other games ever since. Fun fact, it was originally going to be about shooting ships and planes, but they switched it up to aliens to avoid any real-world controversies. Space Invaders is more than a game. It's a piece of history that continues to influence and entertain. Its simplicity is its genius, offering a challenge that's as engaging now as it was in the 70s. Pro Gear. Pro Gear is an intense horizontal shooter that's all about diving into some serious bullet chaos. You're maneuvering through these insane patterns, switching between a rapid fire mode and a slower, more powerful gunner mode that helps you take on the tougher spots. The game's got this cool system where you turn enemy bullets into collectibles, which cranks up your score and helps you dodge the madness. It's all about quick reflexes and smart switching between your weapons. The game's presentation is sharp, with vivid stages and smooth scrolling that showcase the CPS2 hardware's capabilities. The character designs are appealing, and the boss designs are nothing short of spectacular, featuring creative enemies like a mechanical whale and a flying fish-esque boss. The game's scoring system is complex and rewarding, encouraging players to master the mechanics for high scores. While the game can be frustrating at times due to its difficulty, the sense of achievement from clearing stages and understanding the scoring system is immense. Donpachi. Donpachi is a vertical scrolling shooter that's all about the adrenaline rush. You're in the cockpit, taking on a futuristic space shoot-'em-up scenario where the bad guys have spaceships and bases that you need to destroy. The game offers a selection of ships, each with unique firing styles and special attacks. You've got your forward-shooting ship with a powerful but narrow shot, a wide-angle but less powerful shot, and a direction-controlled shot that lets you cover more angles. The gameplay is intense, with layers of parallax scrolling giving it a 3D look while maintaining a 2D feel. Donpachi delivers a top-notch experience. The voice acting might be a bit rough, reminiscent of a 1940s radio show, but the gunshots, laser beams and explosions fit the mid-90s game vibe perfectly. The gameplay is where Donpachi really shines. It's smooth, though you might experience some slowdown during intense moments. This game is action-packed, offering just enough wiggle room to maneuver without using your bomb if you're clever. The graphics are colourful and animations are great, with big explosions that sometimes cause a little slowdown. Playing through an RGB connection is recommended to get the best visual experience. Gradius Gaiden. Released back in '97, this game was a game-changer for the Gradius series with its slick 3D graphics. You get to pick from 4 different ships, each with its own set of unique weapons, which is pretty sweet. The story's set way after the Third Bacterian War, with Gradius chilling in peace until these bad guys from the Black Nebula show up to stir trouble. You're part of this elite squad sent into the nebula to take them down. Gradius Gaiden has this neat feature where you can adjust the difficulty, so whether you're a rookie or a pro, you're in for a good time. Plus, the shield options add a whole new layer of strategy to the game. You can even tweak your power-up lineup, which means you can play it your way. The game keeps the classic Gradius challenge, but mixes in awesome visuals and sound, making it a blast to play. Eschatos. Eschatos is a vertical shooter that brings a fresh twist to the genre with its cinematic style and engaging gameplay. You're up against an alien invasion, zipping over cities and blasting into space. The game's got 3 modes to keep things interesting. Original mode starts you off fully powered, while advanced mode requires you to build up your weapons and balance shield usage for scoring opportunities. Lastly, the time attack mode has a sense of urgency with a countdown timer. The game's standout feature is the shield, which not only protects but also converts enemy bullets into bonus points, adding a layer of tactical decision-making. It might not have the flashiest graphics, but the design and boss battles are super engaging. The way the camera moves around adds to the game's cinematic feel, and the variety of enemies keeps you guessing. It's fast-paced and fun, without dumping too many bullets on you at once, so you don't feel overwhelmed. Eschatos mixes old-school shooting with a fresh vibe, making it a blast to play. Fantasy Zone. Fantasy Zone is a vibrant side-scrolling shooter series that's all about the journey of Opa, a sentient spaceship battling to save the Fantasy Zone from various threats. The series is known for its bright, pastel-colored worlds and engaging gameplay, where you navigate through levels, destroy enemy bases, and collect coins to upgrade your arsenal. Each game in the series adds its own twist, from new weapons and enemies to different mechanics like warps and dimension flipping, keeping the gameplay fresh and exciting. The games are challenging, requiring quick reflexes and smart use of power-ups to progress. The variety of weapons and upgrades adds depth, allowing for different playstyles and strategies. While some entries in the series are better than others, with occasional issues like awkward camera scrolling or frustrating difficulty spikes, the overall experience is consistently enjoyable. The series has also inspired a range of ports and sequels, each bringing something new to the table. Aldines. Aldines for the Super Graphics is a horizontal shooter that packs a punch with its impressive sprite handling and multi-layer parallax, showcasing the console's capabilities. The game's color palette might seem a bit muted, but the sheer size and number of sprites on the screen at once, especially the huge bosses, make up for it. The sound, while not groundbreaking, delivers some catchy tunes that fit the game's intense action. Gameplay-wise, Aldines shines with a mix of reflex-based shooting and strategic weapon upgrades. The weapon system is familiar, but includes some original options like a bouncing laser and a red force shield that expands from your ship. The game also offers different formations for your options, adding a layer of tactical play. It's one of those shooters that's kinda flown under the radar, but definitely deserves a shout-out. The game keeps you engaged, with enemy patterns that make you think, and a weapon system that's fun to play around with. The big bosses are a highlight, making each level feel like a mini-epic showdown. It's a bummer it didn't reach a wider audience, but if you're into discovering hidden gems in gaming, Aldines is worth checking out. Dead End City. Dead End City throws you into a world where everything has gone sideways, and it's up to you to blast your way through the chaos. You're behind the wheel of a chariot, a souped-up car with all the firepower you need to take on the Scorpio gang and save your loved ones. The game is all about navigating through the ruins, keeping an eye on your fuel gauge, and mowing down any baddies that get in your way. You've got a choice of 5 different vehicles, each with its own driver and style of shooting, so you can mix things up to suit your mood. The game's concept of constantly draining fuel adds a layer of tension, making every collected canister a small victory. The game's look has this cool throwback vibe, with pixel art that's all about capturing the feel of those 90s arcade games. The unique setting and survival elements set it apart from typical entries in the genre. It's a gritty, adrenaline-pumping ride, perfect for those who love a good post-apocalyptic tale mixed with arcade-style shooting. Zero Wing. Zero Wing is this side-scrolling shooter that's kinda famous, for the wrong reasons. You're cruising through space, taking on a massive alien fleet with your ship, grabbing power-ups and trying to stay in one piece. It's got all the usual shoot-'em-up stuff, blasting baddies, weaving through bullets, and beefing up your firepower. But honestly, it's the wacky translation that's made Zero Wing a legend. You've probably heard the "all your bases belong to us" line. Yeah, that's from this game. The gameplay is pretty standard fare, nothing too flashy or innovative, but it does the job. The visuals and tunes are typical for its time, not bad, but not mind-blowing either. However, it's the game's intro and those odd dialogues that have given Zero Wing its lasting fame. It's more than just a game, it's a slice of internet history. So, if you're curious about this meme-tastic piece of gaming lore or just in the mood for some straightforward space shooting action, Zero Wing might be worth a shot. Just don't expect any groundbreaking gameplay. It's the laughs and the nostalgia that are the real stars here. Dodon Pachi Sa Ojo, SDOJ. Dodon Pachi Sa Ojo is a vertical bullet hell game that stands as the final entry in the acclaimed Dodon Pachi franchise. You're one of 4 dolls. Yeah, not your usual space hero, battling it out against a rogue AI bent on wiping out humanity. The game's got this anime vibe that makes everything pop, from the bright, colourful levels to the intense bullet patterns you're weaving through. Each stage has its own flavour, taking you from neon-lit cities to the heart of a computer, though they might not be as out there as some other games in the genre. Each of the 5 stages, ranging from nighttime cityscapes to rivers and even inside a computer, offers distinct visuals. However, compared to other cave creations, the stages can feel somewhat generic. The gameplay is straightforward but intense, with a bunch of ships and outfits to mix things up. But here's the kicker. This game is tough. Like really tough. It's known for being one of the most demanding shooters out there. The scoring system, while complex, is intuitive and adds to the game's excitement. It's got a bunch of modes and even a few characters to keep things fresh. If you're looking for something that'll really test your skills, SDOJ is worth a look. Just be ready for a rough ride. Softstar. Softstar tosses you into some wild shoot-'em-up action while you're battling it out against a bunch of mean aliens. You're playing as Sub-Lieutenant Sof, who's got some serious gaps in her memory but knows her way around a fight. The game's loaded with different modes, so whether you're in the mood for a classic arcade run or just want to see how long you can last against a never-ending alien horde, it's got you covered. Plus, with 9 ships to choose from, each with its own set of gear and moves, you can really mix things up. The graphics have this cool, vibrant look that makes every battle pop, and the action is non-stop. The sound is pretty intense, with a soundtrack that keeps the adrenaline high. The controls are a breeze, so you'll be weaving through enemies and blasting away in no time. It's the kind of game that's perfect for when you want something fast and fun, without any complicated setup. While the story might be a bit out there, it's all part of the charm. Robotron 2084. Robotron 2084 is this intense arcade game that throws you into the thick of a robot uprising. You're this supercharged hero trying to save humanity, zapping robots left and right. The game is all about quick reflexes and blasting in every direction. You start each round smack in the middle of chaos, and it's up to you to clear the screen and snatch up humans for those sweet bonus points. It's one of those games that's easy to pick up but insanely hard to master. The action is non-stop, and the game just keeps getting faster and more intense with each wave. The variety of enemies, like the brain Robotrons that turn humans into missiles, keeps you on your feet. The co-op mode is a cool twist, making you work together in a whole new way. While the game's simplicity and brutal difficulty might not be for everyone, its addictive nature and pure arcade thrill make it a classic. Jets and Guns 2 2020. Jets and Guns 2 is a side-scrolling space shooter that promises a high-octane experience with intense action and destruction. Players dive into a world of futuristic space combat, navigating the ship through waves of enemies and obstacles. The game boasts a variety of insane weapons, from disco lasers to sun rays, allowing players to obliterate their adversaries in style. The addition of new mechanics, like on-use abilities, adds an extra layer of depth to the battles. While the game maintains a familiar feel for fans of the original, it introduces new elements and different upgrades to keep the experience fresh and engaging. Jets and Guns 2 delivers on its promise of frantic action and fun. The game's music sets the perfect tone for the explosive battles, and the sheer variety of weapons ensures that every playthrough feels dynamic and exciting. However, the game's length is a point of contention. The ability to breeze through the normal difficulty in about 4 hours might leave players wanting more. While the game encourages replayability with higher difficulties and new mechanics, the overall experience feels too short. Despite this, it's a solid pick if you're into fast-paced shooters and looking for a good time. Just don't expect a marathon. This one's more of a sprint. Zero Ranger 2018. Zero Ranger is a vertical scrolling shooter that's a love letter to anime, music, films, and video games. The gameplay is intense, with players choosing between two ships that offer different weapon spreads, damage per shot, and story paths. As you navigate through stages filled with enemies, mid- and end-level boss fights, and environmental hazards, the game's narrative unfolds subtly through gameplay, hinting at themes of reincarnation and repetition found in Hinduism and Buddhism. There's intense action and cool pixel art. The game doesn't hold back with the enemy fire, so you're always on your toes. While the idea of playing through multiple times to see the real ending might not be everyone's cup of tea, the game keeps things interesting with plenty of nods to other games and shows. There's a few spots where the game could use some extra content, but overall, Zero Ranger has a lot going for itself. It's fun, it's tough, and it's got style. Yeah, definitely worth a shot. Project Starship X 2020. Project Starship X is a vertical roguelike shooter that takes you on a crazy journey through randomized stages filled with all sorts of enemies and hazards. You get to play as different characters, each with unique stats that change how you tackle the game. It's all about quick moves and quicker decisions, with a bunch of cool weapons and power-ups to keep things interesting. The game structure is such that no two runs are exactly the same. The more you play, the more the game opens up. The controls feel just right, making it super satisfying when you zip through a tight spot or land a perfect shot. The game style is all kinds of fun, with bright, quirky visuals that keep your eyes as busy as your fingers. The soundtrack, it's a total headbanger, matching the fast action beat for beat. Yeah, sure, it can be pretty tough, especially when you venture into the harder modes, but with its ever-changing levels, tons of secrets, and the hours of fun you'll have, Project Starship X is a top pick for anyone who loves a good shoot-'em-up. Viewpoint 1992. Viewpoint is this cool shooter that really flips the script with its isometric view. Instead of the usual top-down look, you get this angled 3D-ish style that changes up how you play. You're in charge of this nifty little ship, dodging enemies and blasting through levels that are packed with all sorts of obstacles and huge bosses. It's tricky, for sure, and the game's known for making you sweat with its tough-as-nails moments. The visuals are sharp, and the tunes are funky and upbeat, but yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. Some folks love the hardcore challenge, while others might find it a bit too much. Either way, Viewpoint has carved out its spot as a unique and bold shooter, especially if you're looking for something that's a bit off the beaten path. Marvelous verdict. Diving into these games was like taking a wild ride through the coolest arcade in town. Each game is its own little universe of adrenaline and strategy, where you're zipping around, blasting enemies, and feeling like a total boss when you finally beat that level that's been giving you grief. It's not just about having quick fingers, it's about getting into the zone, figuring out the patterns, and having a blast while you're at it. Whether you've been playing these kinds of games for years or you're just looking to try something new, there's something new in this list for everyone.